The problem is they exist because we love them and we support them. If it's seen, the first rule of PR is don't tell a lie.
Else are you being sort of suspicious and secretive around labor and birth unless you're trying to shuffle out a surrogate and make it look like Meghan gave birth, and you're trying to be weird about this, then it's going to make people think there's something weird.
Meghan exposed by private doctor over Archie's paternity. That sentence broke the internet overnight, splashing across timelines in neon letters. According to a veteran obstetrician once bound by palace secrecy, almost everything the world thought it knew about Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor has been carefully stage-managed, right down to the paperwork in the royal archives. If even half of what he alleges is accurate, the controversy could leave lasting cracks in the Sussex brand and in the public's faith that modern royalty still plays by its own stated rules. The story begins where most royal birth fairy tales end: the hospital. May 6, 2019 was billed as the day Meghan Markle would bring new life into the royal bloodline at London's exclusive Portland Hospital. Protocol calls for locked-down corridors, decoy vehicles, and a full complement of Metropolitan Police officers. Yet nurses who have now retired describe the maternity ward as Sunday quiet, with no unusual activity apart from a single security guard checking his phone by the lift. The doctor who has stepped forward says he was part of a reserve team pre-approved to assist if complications arose. His surgical kit remained sealed. No radio call came. He left his shift at dusk convinced the birth had been postponed, only to wake the next morning to a palace press release announcing Archie's arrival. That discord, he insists, forced him to review duty logs, which confirmed no royal escort ever set foot in the building during the critical window. It was the first of many gaps in a tale that once felt airtight. Those gaps widened with the official unveiling 2 days later. Cameras from every major outlet lined St. George's Hall at Windsor. Reporters expected a brief exchange. What they got was closer to a perfume advertisement. Meghan, glowing in a tailored white trench dress and vertiginous heels, floated beside Harry, who cradled a blanket-swaddled infant like a museum piece. No one was allowed to photograph Archie's face, and the scrum ended after 90 seconds. Mothers watching at home immediately questioned how a woman could stand so effortlessly just 48 hours after delivery. Photos of Catherine leaving hospital hours after labor still showed fatigue behind her smile. Meghan looked red carpet ready. The doctor now claims the baby presented that day was developmentally closer to 2 weeks old, based on muscle tone and eye focus. He also confirms whispers that a private pediatrician flew from Los Angeles to Heathrow under a sealed itinerary the night before the photo call, intensifying speculation that the delivery occurred far from British soil. Observers describe the atmosphere as ice-thin, as though one stray question might shatter the scene. When skeptical chatter refused to die down, palace aides pointed to the birth certificate as definitive proof. But the document only fed the fire. It appeared days after the photo call, submitted not by Meghan but by an anonymous courtier, and large blocks were redacted before entering the public record. Most glaring was the blank where the attending physician's signature should have been. That omission, the whistleblowing doctor states, was no clerical error. He says palace lawyers contacted him hours before submission, instructing that his name remain absent because he had never physically examined mother or son. Instead, the form listed the Portland Clinical Team in vague catch-all language. Even laypeople understood that every royal birth since Queen Victoria had a named doctor of record. Removing that line was akin to ripping the registration out of a classic car. It might still drive, but provenance becomes impossible to prove. The redactions, later blamed on privacy, actually protected the fact that no traditional medical oversight existed. For historians cataloging royal lineage, that missing fact is not trivial. It undermines the legitimacy of succession documents that could be consulted a century from now. Inside Buckingham Palace, the fallout was immediate. Seasoned courtiers who had served the Queen for decades whispered that they had never felt such exclusion, not even during the turbulent Diana years. Elizabeth II herself reportedly learned of Meghan's hospital choice from a press statement rather than a personal briefing. For a monarch who regards duty as oxygen, that slight cut deep. Sources claim she summoned her private secretaries, demanding to know why royal gynecologists were sidelined and why travel logs showed no secure transport arranged for the Sussexes. The answers were vague, punctuated by phrases like personal preference and American privacy standards. The break with protocol masked a more serious development. Meghan had insisted every staffer within Frogmore sign bespoke NDAs, forbidding even hallway conversation about her whereabouts or condition. The doctor corroborates this, revealing that security tore up his standard confidentiality waiver and replaced it with a 30-page legal gag carrying million-pound penalties. Such intensity, he says, only makes sense if the pregnancy itself was never meant to be independently verified. Digital breadcrumbs eventually surfaced. A flight manifest showed a chartered Gulfstream landing at Farnborough 4 days before the birth announcement, arriving from Santa Barbara and listing pediatric supplies among its cargo. Another record placed Meghan's favored Los Angeles doula, Alexandra McQueen, in London that same weekend, despite her public Instagram showing poolside photos time-stamped for California. Investigators now believe those posts were scheduled content meant to disguise travel. The doctor says he was offered a simple deal: endorse the official narrative and enjoy a lifetime retainer, or step aside and keep quiet. He chose the latter, until the paternity question resurfaced. Apparently, the Queen's private legal counsel discreetly requested a DNA comparison between Archie and Prince Harry for archival completeness. The request was declined, then ignored. Within weeks, the preserved blood samples from Archie's newborn screening were, according to hospital policy logs, disposed of due to a paperwork anomaly. The whistleblower remarks that he has never seen samples destroyed in less than 5 years, let alone 5 weeks, calling it scientifically indefensible. Combined with the vanished chain of custody forms, the disposal created a blind spot large enough to swallow any future paternity audit. Public curiosity mutated into a frenzy once online sleuths compiled video clips showing Meghan's baby bump shifting shape between morning engagements and evening galas. One notorious frame appeared to capture the bump folding as she bent to pick up a fallen envelope. Commentators first laughed, then paused when obstetric specialists noted that such movement is implausible for a third trimester abdomen. The doctor addresses this directly, suggesting the possibility of a prosthetic support garment, sometimes worn by surrogacy clients who wish to disguise the arrangement. He clarifies that the garment itself is not illegal, yet employing it while claiming personal pregnancy steps into ethical quicksand. Meanwhile, Harry's own remarks accidentally stoked the fire. In a podcast recorded months later, he referred to watching my wife become a mother rather than give birth, a subtle distinction unnoticed at the time. Linguists dissected the phrasing, concluding it was a polished but revealing script. Each verbal slip, each deleted social media image compounded a sense that the Sussexes were juggling far more than diapers and midnight feeds. Money, as always, adds motive. The Sussexes' departure from frontline royal duties coincided with trademark filings for Archie across multiple merchandise categories, from organic baby food to animation rights. Marketing experts argue that a birth untethered to rigid palace oversight gave the couple flexibility to license their son's image without Crown Estate interference. If a surrogate had indeed carried Archie, acknowledging it publicly might derail that commercial blueprint by complicating custody rights and dissolving the fairy tale consumers crave. The doctor emphasizes that surrogacy itself carries zero stigma in modern medicine. The secrecy does the damage. By masking reality, the Sussexes risk transforming a perfectly legal arrangement into a perceived scandal. Fuel for tabloids, yes, but also erosion for the compassionate causes they champion. Charity partners rely on authenticity. Donors recoil when narratives feel engineered. That, he says, is why he finally spoke up. Not to shame the parents, but to warn that trust, once broken, leaches value from every project tied to their household name. In a digital era where audiences wield pause buttons and archive every live stream, authenticity isn't just moral currency, it's the only currency that compounds over time.